time to speak out. Yeah! Alright, we're going to speak out and we're going to learn a lot about the power of speech. Okay, this is going to do a lot of famous speeches and why people make them. And we're going to see a lot of heroic people. So this is actually going to be good positive stuff about things that are negative, but how people fix it and or unite people and move people to do great things. So we're going to learn about that. And then later on this week, we're actually going to play a bunch of videos of famous speeches. And then we're going to, then you're going to write a paper on who moved you the most from that speech, okay? That'll be a lot of fun. We'll see a lot of men and women making great speeches about, helping people and getting better, getting people more power. All right? So let's read on this week, shall we? The Power of Speech by John Manos. Unifying a nation. Speeches have tremendous power. Well-chosen words delivered by a good speaker can move people in a way that is unmatched by almost anything else. Often it is not only the way the speaker delivers the words that makes a speech historic, but also the events happening in the world at the time it is given. Great oration, or speaking, is not a natural talent of every leader, but one job of presidents and other elected officials is to unify a nation in a time of crisis. These are moments when a whole nation of people needs to draw together, and it is in these moments that the power of speech is at its greatest. Throughout history, many memorable speeches have been given in times of national crisis. A time in history known as the Great Depression had cost a quarter of the American people their jobs. It looked as though prosperity would never return to the country. It was into this climate that Franklin Delano Roosevelt was elected president in 1932. FDR, as he was known, delivered his first inaugural address on March 4th, 1933. Which was broadcast across the country. Ever since, people have quoted a single phrase from the speech. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. During his presidency, FDR combined the power of speech with one of the most important communication tools of the day, the radio. American homes would not have televisions widely in use until more than a decade later. But radio use was spreading. FDR's radio speeches were known as the fireside chats. Americans at the time felt that they knew the president almost as a personal friend. FDR spoke in a manner that brought security and comfort, but also roused and encouraged. FDR asked listeners to communicate to him in response to his speeches, and people did. Millions of letters were sent and received. Roosevelt used the power of his voice and also crafted language that everyone could understand. He used anecdotes and analogies. He helped lift up the spirits of citizens during a devastating time. And because of the special care in crafting and delivering the radio broadcast, FDR was persuasive and well respected by citizens. He used language that created a national identity, where everyone was a part of the same team. One that hoped in his words. Together we cannot fail. Speeches can also unify people in times of celebration. Such speeches often call attention to a shared sense of purpose. Many speeches that are given to commemorate an important event become a kind of rallying cry for an entire population. When John Fitzgerald Kennedy was elected president in 1962 at age 43, he was the youngest person ever elected to the office. He brought an image of youthful energy to his inaugural address, and he stated it directly, saying, "Let the word go forth from this time and place to friend and foe alike, that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans." In his speech, Kennedy described challenges he felt the country faced, and he called upon all to offer their own efforts to meet those challenges. At the end of the speech, he delivered a line that is still often quoted. "And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country." Speeches that unify a nation may bring us together to commemorate historic firsts. On January 20th, 2009, Barack H. Obama became the first African American to be elected President of the United States. He spoke to some 1.8 million people in Washington, D.C. that day. He recalled the journey of earlier Americans. His words asked Americans to continue on in the same spirit. "It has been the risk-takers, the doers, the makers of things, who've carried us up the long, rugged path towards prosperity and freedom. This is the journey we continue today." Human and civil rights. Some speeches mark a moment in history, as they did during the Great Depression, or when a new president takes office. At other times, a great speech can change history. This has been especially true in the long worldwide struggle to achieve human and civil rights. There is no better example of a civil rights speech than the "I Have a Dream" speech delivered by Martin Luther King Jr. on August 28, 1963. It is considered one of the greatest speeches in U.S. history. A century after African Americans had been freed from slavery, they were still denied basic freedoms in many parts of the country. Dr. King offered a vision of hope and change in an electrifying speech that helped reshape the course of our entire American society. "I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." Mohandas Gandhi of India was one of Dr. King's heroes. Gandhi believed that the only way to achieve lasting civil rights was through non-violent means. On August 8, 1942, in Bombay, now Mumbai, he described his goals. "Ours is a drive for power, but purely a non-violent fight for India's independence." Oh, did I say is a drive? I should say is not a drive. Let me try it again. "Ours is not a drive for power, but purely a non-violent fight for India's independence. In the democracy which I have envisioned, a democracy established by non-violence, there will be equal freedom for all. Everybody will be his own master." Great feats and broken barriers. Great accomplishments, important events, and falling barriers all lead to great speeches. We honor such achievements through speeches as they occur and afterward in remembrances. In 1981, President Ronald Reagan nominated Sandra Day O'Connor as the first female Supreme Court Justice in U.S. history. In a speech he gave 23 years later in 2004, O'Connor described herself as a cowgirl from eastern Arizona, noting that life had led her to amazing experiences. She commemorated the nomination, saying, "It was about women everywhere. It was about a nation that was on its way to bridging a chasm between genders that had divided us for too long." Some barriers are physical in addition to being political. One such case was the Berlin Wall, which was built overnight on April 13, 1961, during a time known as the Cold War. On June 12, 1987, President Ronald Reagan delivered a stirring speech in front of the main gate of the Berlin Wall. He spoke to the people trapped behind the wall who could only hear his speech via illegal radio broadcasts. Reagan called on the leader of the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev, to make a profound change, declaring, "General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." Reagan's speech is considered the beginning of the end of communism in Europe. 2 years later, the wall came down. Woman's voice. Throughout history, great speeches inspired many to take comfort, celebrate, or act in a new way. Important leaders, many of whom were men, gave such speeches, but so did women. And not only those who held political positions, but also women who were common citizens. These women made history, communicating in their own humble style. Sojourner Truth was such a woman. She was born into slavery, and when she was finally free, she spoke about the rights of all people, particularly women. In 1851, she gave an extemporaneous or unplanned speech at a convention for women's rights. One issue of the day was whether women should be able to vote in a political election. After a life of hard work in fields, Sojourner Truth knew she had abilities equal to men. "Look at me! Look at my arm," she said. "I have plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man could head me." This meant that no man could outdo her. At the time, if women were allowed to vote, there was the concern that only white women would be able to do so. Sojourner Truth wanted to communicate that all women, white and black, should have the right to vote. She added thoughtfully, "And ain't I a woman?" If you remember, we've already actually studied that speech from Sojourner Truth in class, so hopefully you remember that. President Obama nominated Hillary Rodham Clinton to the role of U.S. Secretary of State in 2009. Before she played this role, Clinton had been a First Lady and a member of the U.S. Senate. One of the Secretary of State's responsibilities is to travel and speak to groups of international leaders and diplomats. In so doing, the Secretary of State delivers the United States messages and policies around the world to international audiences. In the first 3 years as Secretary of State, Clinton traveled to over 90 countries, speaking often about the health and welfare of women and girls. In 2011, at a meeting focused on women, peace and security, or safety, Clinton said, "Many of us have tried to show the world that women are not just victims of war, they are agents of peace." In this speech and others, Clinton used her role as a diplomat to educate and inform. She has stated that women are critical to making lasting changes that improve life for all people. When women organize in large numbers, they galvanize opinion and help change the course of history. Words today and tomorrow. The spoken word is the power to move us. Speeches can persuade, entertain, inform, and inspire us. As was throughout the past, great moments of the future will be made memorable through the words of future leaders, writers, entertainers, and ordinary people who are devoted to making life better for others. Women must try to do things as men have tried. When they fail, their failure must be but a challenge to others. Amelia Earhart, Aviator. You can have a dream, you can have struggles, but you can overcome those struggles through perseverance and the right mentors in your lives and by making good decisions. John Harrington, astronaut. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. Steve Jobs, technology developer. If you get, give. If you learn, teach. Maya Angelou, poet. Life is not a spectator sport. If you're going to spend your whole life in the grandstand just watching what goes on, in my opinion, you're wasting your life. Jackie Robinson, baseball player and civil rights activist. All right, guys, there's some amazing speeches and quotes. All right, so I hope you listen to them, maybe removed by some of them. So later on, you're going to pick a speech that moved you, and you can pick one of those that we just heard. We're going to play a bunch of videos of speeches too, and you can pick those. But you can pick any quote from the book there and use that. All right? Okay, so we're going to do another question today, which is, for what reasons has speeches been made throughout history? So first we're going to answer that question for today, and then we'll answer the other ones for later. All right. So have a good week. I hope you had a great Memorial Day weekend. And now we're going to move on. Bye.